Welcome to Dungeon Mastering is Easy. This is the show that shows that anyone can be a dungeon master. It's great to have you here. My name is Vahid. I'm the host of the show. And today we have the wonderful Nick from Tabletopped Podcast series. It's great to have you here with us, Nick. How you doing?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me, Vahid. This is awesome. I'm lucky to get to talk with you again so close from our last conversation.
Yeah, look, a couple of weeks ago, I had the honor of being a guest on Tabletopped, and it was super fun. And so I instantly said, hey, Nick, do you want to come on our show? So here we are.
Yes, it was great. Everyone should go listen to it. Vahid was a lot smarter than me, and I think it showed a little bit, but that's okay.
Not even close. Hey, so guys, if you haven't connected with Tabletop, this podcast series, they've been going for 4 years. They've got this amazing back catalog of content, super helpful for anyone who plays Dungeons & Dragons. If you're a player or a dungeon master, but not only Dungeons & Dragons, they also look at like system agnostic kind of approaches and techniques, and they also review other games. So there's content that I am sure you will love. Head over there, check it out. And Nick is the producer of that show and has so much knowledge. I'm sure that we're going to find this really helpful. Yeah. And today, Nick is sharing some thoughts on making BBEGs, the big bad evil guy.
All right. So here's the thing. And I'm going to start, and this maybe is going to turn the whole script on this question.
Okay.
But I like to start with a system instead of a specific person. So I start with a system that the players are going to be fighting against, because what is the most interesting thing to really confront in your games is sort of like an overwhelming force that as you level up, you're going to eventually be able to confront. And that usually means a group of people, right? Or a shared ideology that these people are going to have. And so I start there, and then I think, okay, so this person or this ideology is all about control. Like this person wants to control everything around them for whatever reason. These are the motivations. Okay, well, a lich does that. Undead are really a great metaphor for that. Maybe I want to have that be sort of what the background of this character is. And then not only can you derive sort of plans of action and also like what they are trying to do, motivation, but you can also do like tactics and like how are they going to fight these, like when you are eventually confronting them, how are they going to fight? Well, this person wants control, then that's all going to be like, you know, instead of evocation, maybe it's like illusion and transmutation, things that are going to be really utility based. And then he uses, you know, the undead hordes to take down his enemies. So I think I always start with like a way that what you're going to have in the game that the players are going to confront, and then personify that.
At first, when I thought you were talking about like what kind of game system, but no, no, that's not what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're talking about a concept and a system organizationally or whatever that permeates the entire story. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Because I think then it is as a GM, in some way, you're also going to be a little bit of a writer. You're kind of plotting arcs for your characters, and your BBEG is sort of going to be that cumulative thing that they're going to get to eventually. It's the end of the season sort of big episode. And so what you have to do is make sure that all the themes work as you're doing it. So if you have a really clear idea of the way that your bad guy thinks and how they operate and what system that they are trying to use to get to their ends and what the people around them are doing, then you're going to have a much easier time writing as your characters do crazy stuff in your game.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, and so you've given the example of control, like an example of a lich. They want to control a lot, right? Yeah. They want to control their own longevity in their own life. Mm-hmm. They want to control the world around them. Yeah. So they take an approach of domination of nations, of controlling minions.
But you could also have that same thing if you wanted to do a low-level campaign. Maybe it's just like a duke that is like not very martially powerful, but is incredibly powerful within the city that your characters are operating in. Yeah. And he has lots of control of the city and how it functions. And so your characters might be bumping up against, you know, the guard much more than the actual bad guy. But then when they get there, it's all going to make sense and it's going to be great.
Yeah, sure. One of the things I really find I have never heard anyone say this before. First of all, Nick, this is cool.
Okay, cool.
I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons for 45 years. Okay. And I've never heard anyone express this so concisely. This is really interesting because what I think is fascinating is that the way that we play Dungeons and Dragons is much more cinematic now than it was even 11 years ago when 2014 first came out. Yep. And so what you're describing is embedding the idea of the story into the BBEG, or the BBEG is this like expression, this final culmination, as you said, of the underlying theme of a story. And that's a very cinematic way to approach things.
In our conversation on Tabletop, we were talking about the differences between the like kind of old style and how dungeons used to be written for players to run. But I think that even then it's still like, it just adds a little bit more to the character experience if they feel as though they are able to put this thing that they are fighting into context of the greater story that you're running. And I guess that is super cinematic in a way of thinking. It's very writerly, but I think that it actually makes it a lot easier for the GM to not have to think too hard about like, is this all like in context? Is everything making narrative sense? Am I describing things in the right way? Because like if you just follow the sort of goals and the modus operandi of this bad guy, then you're going to kind of get the decisions that maybe you would write anyway.
Yeah, cool. Like I am a big Star Wars fan, so sometimes I find Star Wars parallels everywhere. But like one of the core themes that George Lucas wanted through the entire film was this idea of wealth and power trying to dominate ordinary little people.
Yeah.
Okay? And that theme starts with Luke Skywalker being a farmer.
Yeah.
And goes through so many iterations. Ewoks are another example of small, seemingly incapable creatures when they work together, overcoming mechanized, powerful, money-supplied forces. And so this idea that you've expressed, and then, of course, the Emperor Palpatine is the final expression of that. So I really like this idea.
And he's not a warrior, he's a politician, right? So that's like that's the top of that pyramid. Like it just, and that way when, the bad guy is introduced, like, who controls Darth Vader, the most powerful, like, killing machine ever, is this person who is so sinister and is just controlling everyone because he has an entire galaxy's worth of, like, of money-bought soldiers. And that's, that's a great way to personify that.
Cool. So then going back to our Lich example, I could see that like a personification of your Lich example of control, that you could really lean into that with things like items, cursed items, magical items, the effect that the Lich has, not just lightning bolts and blasting with Eldritch stuff, but things like mind control, and not only taking over undead and things like that, which is the ultimate control, but also things like, big enchantment spells, which turn the players against themselves. You could continue that theme.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think about this a lot because one of the next things I always think about when I'm designing some sort of like monstrous entity that they're going to probably interact in a way that involves combat, which is usually a big bad evil guy. Like, I always think, how do they hunt? How do they fight? Because that is going to also determine a lot about this character. So like if the value that you're going is like, I want to really play with the idea of just like running away from your problems. Like, that's how this person deals with the destruction that they cause. Maybe they're a pirate king, and what do? Is like the biggest problem is going to be catching the pirate king, because that's the thing that you want to sort of build the system around. And then how does the pirate king go about creating this level of mobility that allows them to get away with this ideology that they have. Maybe they have a really great magical boat, and the big bad evil guy is actually the boat that you have to take on. It's just bristling with cannons. It's super fast, that kind of thing. Just like it's just like a way to inspire yourself while still having a little bit of structure around you, so that you can kind of, dream big, but not feel like you're going so like jump the shark sort of left field.
Yeah. Cool. Great. So then, once one has thought about what's the system that the characters are fighting against, what are some other systems that, what are other examples
like
that
greed, anarchy, like that. The Pirate King could also come from the kind of an anarchist sort of like, this person is just like values, no attachments above all other things. Dragons are great greedy things. They literally sit on a huge hoard of gold. They are like, vampires are a really great way to deal with like class, like that system of like, a structured hierarchy. Like vampires are great about that. Like they are literally sort of personifications of these problems that us as human beings have dealt with throughout history. That's why that they were created so specifically. So it's also a really great way to just be like, what do people usually do when they're dealing with this kind of event or system that they're dealing with? Well, it's usually werewolves. It's this like the fear of the bestial nature of the unknown and the demons within us all. Or maybe it's like, feeling helpless in like sort of a cyberpunky way. Like, how do you do that in D&D? Demons. Not demons, devils. They're all about the contracts. They're going to get you to sign things. You can't actually overturn what you've signed, even though you didn't understand it. A lot of people can empathize with that and build systems of control that they are using or oppression that they are using in the game. So I like to start there just because it's just easy to generate from.
I think the example of dragons is really fun, and if you have greed, look, in the world that we live in right now, is greed a problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think we could safely say that greed undermines a significant amount of social cohesion in our world.
Yeah.
And to personify that with a dragon, and then to be able to then backfill it and think, okay, let's have this a theme that lieutenants are also the baddie lieutenants, and even the small people, if their entire system is motivated by this personal greed and desire, that's a powerful thing for players to have to fight against. Okay, so let's move on. So like you've said the first step is thinking the system. Is there anything else that we should consider? The Captives of Doligan is a new Dungeons & Dragons adventure for 5th edition. It's a race against time to save your friends from raiders before they're gone forever. It's a 4-session adventure for characters leveled 1 to 3 and is full of challenging combat, skill, and role-playing encounters, as well as opponents that no one in your group has ever seen before. It features tips and tricks for new dungeon masters to get right into the action and is available as both a physical and digital book. Head to Kickstarter now to get your copy of The Captives of Doligan.
Yeah, it's all about, it depends on when you're making this as well. If it's late campaign and you're building something kind of fresh for like a final arc, then you kind of know what your characters can do and what they're all about. Then you can start thinking about, okay, how do I make the fight the most fun for all of my characters possible? And whether that's like, maybe the big bad evil guy of a dungeon is like a roper that stays on the ceiling and like sucks people up, and like they don't have any fly skills or anything, and like how are they dealing with this thing on the ceiling? That can feel huge and exciting at the end of a dungeon because it is something that they have to think about to deal with, but also allows them to utilize all of their skills. So that is the next step, is like, okay, I want to do control as a system. It's something that I'm really interested in, the idea of being like bending the will of those around you. A lich is great for that. I want undead hordes. But if my characters are squishy or they're very skill based, then that phylactery is interesting. Okay, well, maybe in the room with the big bad evil guy, it's like always floating around him because he doesn't trust anyone like to hide it for him. And so then it's like, okay, how does the skill monkeys of the group get the phylactery while like the tanks and stuff are holding off the hordes? And like then the lich is going to be activated because like this thing has been stolen, and maybe that means that there's like another phase of the fight involving the lair or whatever. But you have to think about, how do I engage all my players? Because a lot of them, like I know a lot of players who are like, I love bards because I love skills and I love being kind of good at anything. And so you're going to want to be like, okay, what does that player like to do? He really likes to figure out a puzzle. Okay, make it so that there's a puzzle, like a lock that you,
yes,
and maybe it's like a Rubik's Cube you literally give them, whatever it is, and they have to figure it out, or they have to like, roll all their skills in a succession. And as that time is happening, something bad is happening to the martial characters. And so it's all about like how fast they can do this. Like it's all about making the encounter fun for everyone. So then build your big bad evil guy with the ability to engage all of those different types of play.
Yeah, cool. That's brilliant. So every character has their strengths to draw on and can feel that they're contributing. Not just the frontliners and not just the wizards. We want everyone to have a significant role and feel that they've really done something towards this. One specific question, one thing that I've heard a lot of dungeon masters talk about is that sometimes the BBEG encounter can sometimes be anticlimactic because by the time the players reach them, they're quite powerful and they can sometimes take out the BBEG really quickly, like in 2 rounds. By the time the characters are even like level 10, they can be doing 100 hit points in a round. If they've got some smites in there, if the barbarian's raging, they throw a fireball. The fireball's going to do 33 hit points just by itself,
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So this is something that my co-host and I talk about all the time, because this happened at like our personal table once, and it almost destroyed our GM because he had been building to this like kind of like Hecate type witch, like hag sort of creature that had like this demonic staff that was going to do all this crazy stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to pickpocket the staff away. I'm going to use my whole term doing that. And he was like, oh, okay, that's crazy. But I was also a high enough level that like my minimum was 25 on these skills. I was just rolling something crazy. And so I got 33 or whatever. And I was like, that's kind of in the rules means that it's like a godly level of skill. And so he was like, yeah, I guess you get away for a second. And then without that, then the monk came in and like stunning striked. And then we just like, it was just over. It was over at that point. The secret weapon was gone, and then all of the actions followed. So yeah, it's really hard. The way I get around that is, the easy way is to double the hit points. I actually really don't recommend that because it just makes the fight go on forever. Double the damage that a creature can do. So like whatever's in the rule book, just double the damage, because you might only get 3 rounds of combat before your BBEG is down. But those 3 rounds are going to be so crazy scary for your players. It's going to be like, wow, somebody just got like blown against a wall, fell down, immediately unconscious. And then everyone's like, oh, but not only that, it also eats up some of the action economy because they're going to have to heal. So it's going to lower their damage output.
Because then when you take one person down, you actually take 2 people down.
Yeah.
In terms of taking them out of the fight, out of dealing damage and solving puzzles.
Yep.
So if you've got puzzles going on, if you've got a complex fight, if you've got the BBEG and you've got a horde and you got a puzzle going on and someone goes down, all of a sudden that ramps up the tension.
Yeah. I think that's so right. And if you think about it purely as like a game designer, really the things that you need to think about as resources is how many actions can your players take per turn, and how do you lower that? That's why legendary actions or reactions are like so crazy, like a tipping point in a fight, is that they allow you to change that ratio. That's another way you can do it, by the way, is like if you're not comfortable being like pretty brutal with your players when it comes to how much damage you're dealing and like the possibility of like character death being on the table, if that's not really your vibe or your table, then just give even if it's just like a 5th level bandit boss legendary actions, because it's going to make the fight feel more interesting. This person is elevated in some way. The players are going to feel it, and you're not going to have that problem of like, oh, we just curb stomped the epic dark king of the land, and that seemed weird.
One of the things that I really like legendary actions, and I find as a dungeon master, it really pays to invest time reading through them carefully.
Yeah.
And understanding them, because a BBEG, like a lich or a high-level dragon, they're complex. They're actually, it's a lot of cognitive load, and it's really hard to play them to their capacity versus 4 or 5 other brains, right?
Yeah.
They're always going to be, a table of players is always going to outperform a single dungeon master, no matter how well you know the rules.
Yeah.
So
They're scheming all the time. Never trust them.
Dude, I don't know about you, but I've got groups that have secret messaging groups so they can talk about strategies that I can't hear, right?
Yeah.
They come to the fight with a plan, which I think is awesome, because if I was an actual character, of course I'd be spending hours doing exactly that. So,
exactly.
But these BBEG, the stat blocks are so complex. It
really simplify it for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Figure out, okay, if I'm only going to get 3 rounds in, what are those 3 rounds going to be?
Yeah.
And make sure that I always try to make sure that I understand those legendary actions, because those are going to get used a lot.
Yeah. And one thing I'm going to throw in here too, because as sort of like, this is my personal feeling, it's always more fun to be additive with the legendary actions than reductive. So if someone says, I do this, and you say, no, legendary action, it feels bad. But if they're like, I do this, and you're like, with a action that can only be described as legendary, the lich raises up an ice wall in front of you. Your spell hits it and blasts a hole, and you can see him smiling at you through it. And now there's a huge ice wall in the middle of the battlefield.
That's a great take,
is more. It's more interesting than just saying no to your players, because they're just going to get frustrated. So be additive with them, even if it's just flavoring what the no's are. That can also be super helpful.
That's really good. Hey, Nick, this has been really helpful. Those 3 points that you raised have been really, really awesome. I've learned things from that, and I'm hoping that everyone else in the audience has. So brilliant. Hey, what we're going to do now is we're going to go into a regular segment that we have, which is called Tools of the Trade.
Yes.
And I find this really fascinating to see what different dungeon masters, and you're a specific case because you're a podcaster and a dungeon master. All right. What tools do you use?
Okay, I'm going to give 2. I'm going to give one for my TTRPG experiences, and then I'm going to do for if you're interested in podcasting or recording your table or anything. The thing I would say is that you don't need a crazy amount of equipment to start. You really, like the Blue Rode microphone that I have right in front of me here is like a $70 microphone, and it is super serviceable and it will get you almost all the way there. And then the other thing is that I think that you just pick a program that you're familiar with, and I would highly recommend the Adobe suite, because you can go back and forth between video if you're into that, if you're doing like an actual play. So that's my suggestion for podcasting. Now, for TTRPGs, very excited. I actually have it right here, this silver cup. So right now it's a home to a bunch of my pens and pencils and stuff I use to draw maps. But at the bottom of this is a bunch of papers. And I can't take credit for this, because actually I read it in an article that was posted online. And to the person who thought of this, you're a genius. Anytime your characters do something that might be nuts, or maybe it's like super heroic and self-sacrificing, you write on a piece of paper a rumor that is created about the group because of this action. You fold it in front of your players and you put it in the jar. And then when they come to like a merchant or whatever, and they're like, hey, what does this tabaxi merchant think of me? I'm like I'm a kobold. I'm kind of a dog person. And I'm like, well, and I reach into the cup and I pull out a rumor. And sometimes it's like, slew the dragon in the north. And the tabaxi's like, oh my God, the dragon slayers are here.
You're the dragon slayers. Like, and discounts all around.
Exactly. And it's so good because it makes it so that you don't have to come up with a distinct point of view for every single NPC. Sometimes it's just pulling something out of a thing. And it also allows you to bring up jokes that the characters have done in a way where it's like, so in one of my tables, this guy was obsessed. One of my friends was obsessed with like his character carving, like whittling, because he wanted to make a little extra money on the side. And he was always making these spoons and trying to see if people would want to buy them. And then, but they were also kind of in like a mafioso kind of thing. And so he kept giving these people that they had just shaken down for money, like these spoons, to be like, here's something to like make it better. And so there was a rumor in the jar that like this guy is like cursing people with spoons because like all of this horrible stuff happens to them, and then he gives them this like cursed object. And so that was like a thing that came out one day, and they were like, please just don't give me a spoon, like that kind of thing. And so it's just fun, and it allows you to make your players really feel like what they're doing at the table is impacting the world around them, and it takes a little bit of burden off yourself. It's great.
Hey, that is really fun, really awesome. And I think something that I take from this, which I hope will be helpful for anyone listening to this episode, is that all the tools that you've shared for both podcasting and for tabletop stuff, they're simple tools. Yeah. All right, Nick, please tell people how they can connect with you and the Tabletopped podcast.
Absolutely. If you're interested, you can join us by going to tabletopppod.com. There's a little Discord button up in the corner. You can click that, get invited to our server, hang out and talk to us. I literally basically answer anybody who talks or asks a question in there. But if you're interested in the stuff we do, head over to any podcasting player that you use, go to Tabletopped, and we are, we've been there. We have a huge back catalog. We have a Patreon with even more stuff over there, even free stuff if you're interested. Tabletopped is going to be going for a while, so come join the club.
Thank you so much. Hey, look, and speaking of Patreon, if you want to support Dice Legenz and the Dungeon Mastering is Easy podcast, head over to our Patreon page. It's easy. It's patreon.com/Dice Legenz. And you can follow for free, or you can join one of the 3 simple tiers that help finance the growth and prosperity of our channel. We really appreciate all the support that we get from our Patreons. From our patrons over on Patreon. Oh my goodness!
The audience is gonna get you there.
I've been told off. I've been told off live by calling people Patreons. They said there's no such word. Anyway, hey guys, thanks for everything you do. And Nick, it's been great having you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This was great.
So I really enjoyed it too. All right, guys, grab some dice, grab some friends. Do some dungeon mastering, because you know what? Dungeon mastering is easy.
It's easy.
All right, catch you later.
All right, bye, guys.